Hey guys, I've been noticing many videos, mainly on TikTok, going viral. The videos in question are about the agonizing and horrible pain you suffer from losing a girl that you loved but never actually dated. As you can probably tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be sharing my own story of how I met and then talked to and then got heartbroken from losing a girl that I never actually dated romantically. What I'm also going to share with you is how you can overcome this pain if you happen to be going through that exact same thing. So, my story with this girl, let's call her Haley. It's going to be quite a long one. If you don't want to hear me yap and hop on about Haley, then feel free to skip ahead of the video. Otherwise, keep watching as normal. So it all starts around August of 2020. No, sorry, autumn of 2020, or the spring of 2020, if any of you are watching this from the Northern Hemisphere. I live in New Zealand. Anyway, I saw her Insta once and I was immediately captivated by her. I thought Haley was a really beautiful human being. She had beautiful eyes, beautiful red hair, and a beautiful smile. A couple of months passed. I built up the courage to talk to her. We exchanged a few small, short, and shallow texts here and there. Then, on around June, I believe, I asked Haley out over Insta. She declined. The reason being was that she was recovering from a really, really terrible breakup from a past relationship. By the way, the scumbag that dated Haley at the time, I have no idea who you are, but you have my absolute worst regards. God help anyone who has the displeasure of knowing you. Anyway, another month or so passed. Haley posted on her socials seeing if anyone was willing to chat at all. I replied to her story and said, hey. We then had a light conversation together. This time it felt like a step up compared to our past conversations. Mainly, we talked about how we're going with school and friends, and also how we were going with the pandemic lockdowns that were happening at the time. We both happened to be starting out with our social skills again. After that, I felt like things between me and her were starting to build up. A couple of weeks later, I'd send a Snapchat to her, caption, good morning, or GM. She would then say good morning back, sometimes followed by a how are you in another light chat. Eventually, around August 2020, after her birthday, was when I thought things were really going well and a connection was starting to build. We were really talking more and more over the Snapchat platform. One time she started to open up to me a lot more. The way I remembered it was that she said sorry for coming off as aloof or dismissive. It had something to do with her past relationship that she had. For context, Haley replied with a one-word answer beforehand, and then I tried to play it cool and keep it going and keep it lighthearted afterwards. Then seeing her open up about her surviving her ex and that her intense trauma was causing her to push me away abruptly or give me the cold shoulder, I then said to her, what matters to me most is your happiness, and I know that that's not who you really are. She said, thank you so much. From that moment on, I knew that I wanted to protect Haley and make sure that she has the chance to be happy again. That I wanted to fight for that, no matter the cost. Throughout the month, me and Haley would talk even more. Haley would, at some point, even start a conversation with me and ask how my day was going, and would sometimes even be coupled with a picture of her beautiful smile. We would talk about a range of things, like the topics I mentioned before, like how we handled the COVID lockdowns and also what we wanted to do when we're older. we admired and were fascinated by each other's hopes and dreams. I told her that I wanted to be an engineer. She told me that she wanted to do a range of things, but it would be something along the lines of performing arts like theater acting or choir or something like music and songwriting, that sort of stuff. We also talked about how lonely we both felt at school, and from coming out of the lockdowns, we'd spend most of the average school day alone and friendless. But since we had each other, nothing else seemed to matter as much. She was just a kind girl. She is a kind person who loves her sister and loves her parents very much. She loved and cherished her passion, too. I love seeing that, too. I love seeing how she would enjoy herself and enjoy the company of the fellow cast and crew of the stage plays that she'd star in. I then fell so deeply in love with her, more and more. Things were really starting to kick off. I got added to her close friends and then on her private spam page on Instagram, and conversing her was just so easy. Everything just flowed like a boat along a calm and peaceful river. That's how she made me feel. And hearing her talk about that scumbag I brought up earlier, as well as other jealous haters at her school trying to tear her down, I was so dissatisfied, and I would even get angry to my core that anyone would want to hurt her. I remember when she said to me once that the fact I haven't brought up sex once to her makes me a million times better guy than her ex could ever hope to be. I couldn't believe my eyes when she sent that message to me. This was just another one of many times that made me fall deeper and deeper in love with Haley and wanted to fight for her happiness and even more. Eventually, we met IRL and hung out at a department store at the local mall. We'd browse stuff, play with the furniture a tad bit, and we'd show each other movie recommendations too. And honestly, nothing much else. I wasn't just with her one-on-one, by the way. She was actually accompanied by another friend. Let's call her Trisha. Trisha, mind you, actually knew full well I was interested in Haley romantically. She even warned me once that there was another guy that was also romantically interested in Haley. We continued talking after our brief little hangout. Then, on around late September and into October was when things really started to decline. Conversations started getting shorter and shorter, and I found myself putting more effort to keep the conversation going. She was throwing off indications that she was losing interest, but when you have feelings this burnt in, you really just don't want the fire to die out. And I was still planning on asking her out another time, eventually too. So I kept on, just not trying to let the fire die out. Until one fateful day, I believe was sometime around October 2020, she announced on her private spam account on Insta that she was taken over Snapchat. At first, I was actually a little confused because at the time conversations with her started to dwindle, and she was losing interest in me. But it turned out that she was actually referring to someone else. I found out that she was officially taken, and that person was not me. And I noticed that Trisha was also following this guy on his social pages, and Trisha never told me anything about this new guy. At that point, I just knew it was all over. There was absolutely nothing I could do. I was heartbroken and absolutely devastated. But yeah, I was so terribly in pain. I remember just sitting alone crying for the entirety of class break at school. I really just could not let let it go for years and years. There were a few times where I tried to rebuild a connection and tried talking to her again, just like before, but it just wouldn't go anywhere. I was just full of attachment and affection for her, but I did realize eventually she wasn't interested in me anymore. Of course, or maybe she was never interested in me to begin with. I'll never know. What I do know, though, was that I loved her. And I don't mean that in a superficial way. It was much more mature than that. I genuinely did love her. I loved her in a protective way, a way that wanted to build a happier world for her, a world and a life where she would never have to suffer again. And despite her having opinions I find disagreeable, and despite her having done things that make me sick to the core, I still loved her. Now, let me make this clear. I'm not saying she owes me anything. I'm not asking her for anything. I'm not trying to be like those fake nice guys who expected that because I did X, Y, and Z, I am owed a romantic relationship. No, no, no. That is not what I'm trying to say. What I want to say is how I recognize that it has ended and how I can move on from that outcome rather than fighting the outcome. So, you may be going through a similar situation. You talked to someone, you fell in love with them, and then you lost them, but you never actually dated that someone, and now you're going through a heartbreak or a kind of grief, if you will. Now, here's my advice if you're trying to overcome that heartbreak. If I could tell you what not to do is being hard on yourself. You absolutely should not do that. Don't waste your time and energy on what you could have done or what you could have said, or there's just no point to it. You basically also just need to accept the outcome. And I know accepting the outcome hurts because what could have been beautiful never came to be. But that doesn't have to cost you your happiness. There's a quote attributed to Picard from Star Trek. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I don't actually watch Star Trek, but there's this quote that I firmly believed helped me deal with the whole thing. It goes, "It is possible to commit no mistakes and still fail. That is not weakness. That's life." Even though you may not have actually done anything wrong, things can still turn sour for reasons outside of your control and reasons outside of your understanding. But because you've done nothing wrong, there just is no need to feel ashamed or hard on yourself. Yeah, it hurts, but it's a beautiful kind of hurt. There is beauty to your suffering. You only suffered so much because you loved them so much. This is where you turn the pain on its head. And that helped me accept the outcome for what it is. And heal and outgrow the heartbreak. And own it too. Own that love. The Holy Spirit is an incredibly powerful being. The most powerful there is out there. Let the Spirit into your being. And give that love freely. And that is the bottom line. Allow yourself to feel that grief. Because you were a person of love. That's why you felt that grief at all. And you still are a person of love. Instead of tying that grief to the past and dwelling on it, let that inspire you into being someone who has that potential to give love to another human being in the present and the future. That's how you outgrow a heartbreak from losing someone you never dated. I don't know about you, but I genuinely hope this helps. For all I know, my advice could be terribly unhelpful to you, or not. In any case, it was my intention to help. That's about it. May God be with you. Peace out.